Good morning. Welcome to session 5 of Get Wise. Today we are going to be looking at chapter 5 of the book of Proverbs. And so if this is your first video, if you haven't seen any of the ones before this, you're welcome to stay with us and go through chapter 5. But if you want to catch up, if you go back to our channel or our playlist, you'll see the first 4 chapters in order. So I taught the first 2, Ryan taught the third one, and then Rachel taught yesterday's chapter 4. And so you can go back and catch up and join us either all today, or you can start today and do the 36-day challenge going forward. So there's a couple of options for you if this is the first time you're tuning in. I'm so glad you guys are here. So as we really jump into today's passage, I think we need to have a good image in our mind of what's going on. And so the first question I want to ask you is, think back to a time in your life where you ate or drank something expecting one thing, but in reality getting something else. So an example that I could think of while you guys are thinking was actually something that happened in this last week. And my wife and I, Rachel, were sitting down for dinner, and we were eating the savory meal. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was thirsty, and so I took a sip of my water cup that was right there, expecting it to be water, but when I drank it, it ended up being cold coffee from that morning. And I love coffee. Coffee is fantastic. I drink it every morning. But in that moment, it was not what I was expecting, and so it was very bitter and surprising, and it took me back. And it made my meal not taste as good because I was expecting one thing. And so now I want you to kind of think through that question, because I think as we look at today's passage of what is God's plan for our life, and what is His design, today we're seeing something that people are trying to fill it with something else. And so, before we jump in, kind of a second thought, the first couple verses of Proverbs 5, we see that Solomon is talking to his son. So as we're reading this is really practical advice for his son. So it's going to be talking about this strange adulterous woman, but really, as we look at this could be for either for guys or ladies, but really talking about the other gender, or other things in general too. So as you're going through that, just pay attention to the words of Solomon. So I want you to go ahead and pause now and read the entire chapter. It's only 23 verses, so it's not super long. But go ahead and take this time, pause, and read through the whole chapter. Okay. Hopefully, you got a chance to read through the whole chapter. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to start taking this chunk by chunk. So as we look at kind of this first 3 verses, once again, we see Solomon's telling his son, hey, pay attention. Let me read that aloud for us. My son, be attentive to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, that you may discern and your lips may guard knowledge. And we see this over and over with Solomon. He's telling his son, hey, pay attention to what I have to say, that this is important. And I think as we're reading this, I think this is once again really important that we're paying attention to what Solomon has to teach us in this moment. So now what I want you to do is pause this video, and we're going to actually reread verses 3 through 14. And after you read those verses, I want you to process these questions. 1, how does Solomon describe this woman in this passage? Secondly, what are the positive descriptions, what are the negative descriptions? Because he does a little bit of both. And maybe the positive isn't necessarily positive about her, but how is she portrayed is probably a better way of asking that question. And thirdly, what is the cost that Solomon says of pursuing this woman? And so go ahead and take this moment and pause. When you come back, I'll ask those 3 questions again. So after you read it, if you need to repeat the questions, I'll repeat those for you. Okay, so once again, there's 3 questions that I want you to think through and process through. 1, how does Solomon describe this strange woman, which that's kind of another way to translate that word. as strange or forbidden? Um, Secondly, what is the positive, or how is the woman described that would make her desirable? And then secondly, what is the negative or not as desirable? And then thirdly, finally, what is the cost? Um, what does Solomon say the cost of pursuing this woman will be? Awesome. Okay, so now coming back as we looked at that, man, we see that Solomon has this really strong warning already about where pursuing this forbidden, this strange woman will lead. And once again, as I talked about at the very beginning, if you're a lady listening to this, it's not just talking about men, or for men talking about women, but also for women talking about men. And so just know that as well. But it gives this really strong warning in verse 14 that says, I'm at the brink of utter ruin in this assembled congregation. And just this reminder of, man, when we strive after these things that aren't for us, this forbidden fruit, then what it's going to lead us to destruction, to separation. We saw that from the very beginning with Adam and Eve, that God gave them the beautifulness of the entire garden, but he said this one tree will lead to your death. And what did we do? We ate of the tree. And so when we take those things that are forbidden, that aren't designed for us, then this is going to lead us to destruction and utter ruin. And so as you think about that, man, what are those things in our life that are going to lead us to destruction? And we'll come back to that question here in a little bit, but I want you to start thinking, what are some of the things in your life that you can look through? And it may not be a relationship. You may not even be married. I'm assuming most of you aren't, from those that I know that are watching this video. So it's not just talking about marriage, but what are those things in life that would lead you to utter ruin, like that fruit? So at this time, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and we're going to read verses 15 through 20. And as you read through those verses, I want you to think about this question. Why does Solomon argue that you shouldn't be involved with this in this adulterous relationship? Why does he say not to do this? And so go ahead and pause the video, read verses 15 through 20, and think about this question of why should we not be involved with this video? Okay, welcome back. Once again, the question was why does Solomon argue that we shouldn't be involved with this strange, forbidden, adulterous woman, or men for the women in the room? As we look through this, I think this is a good reminder that just like my coffee earlier that I told you about, normally I love coffee when it's warm, when you put a little bit of cream. Sometimes you drink it black in the morning, sometimes late at night after dessert. Like, coffee itself is good. It has a purpose. I like it. But in that time, when I was eating dinner, it was wrong. I wasn't expecting it to be coffee. I was expecting it to be something else. It was cold. It wasn't warm and fresh. And so as we look at this, man, relationships and marriage and physical intimacy is all things that God has given us as a gift. And it's not bad or sinful in and of itself. It's just in the situation when it's outside this perfect bond of marriage, when it is adultery, which if you don't know what that word is, look it up. But when it's against this relationship of man and woman, outside of the design of God, then it's wrong. It's the wrong time. It's not good. And it leads to utter ruin. But physical intimacy is this gift that God has given to a married couple, to be physically intimate with each other, and the sweetness of what that looks like. And so, a lot of times, when we look at, man, what are the things in our life of what is wrong and what is right, a lot of times there's a small distinction between them. And that's where sin has come and distorted and ruined and turned for bad what God's meant to give to us as a gift. And so, just like in a marriage, that physical intimacy is sweet. Outside of the bond of marriage, it's wrong, and it leads to ruin, as this passage talks about. So, once again, sin takes godly things and perverts it to evil. I think this is really important to think through. So now what I want you to do is go ahead and pause and read verses 21 through 23. And think about, what is this warning that Solomon is giving his son? Okay, go ahead and pause it now. Welcome back. Once again, that question for verses 21 through 23 is, what warning does Solomon give his son? As we look at this, man, the warning is strong. We've seen it earlier, but secondly, we see that, man, everything that we do is in front of the Lord, and so He knows everything that's going on. One, that's encouraging, but it's also, when we're doing bad things and wrong things, that's also scary, knowing that the Lord is watching. And then we see in verse 22 that the iniquities of the wicked ensnare him, and he is held fast in the cords of his sin. He dies for lack of discipline, and because of his great folly, he is led astray. And so as we look at this, man, I think this leads to kind of this final couple questions that I want to leave you guys to think through. And the first one, and once again, if you're not in a relationship, great, that's why we're walking through these questions. So the first one is, what is the strange or forbidden woman in your life that is leading you away from a deeper sense of intimacy with the Lord? So once again, let me repeat that. So who or what in your life is leading you away from a deeper intimacy with the Lord? And I want you to take some time to think through that. Secondly, how are you going to move away from that? And so, what is it? Two, what are you practically going to do? How are you going to be disciplined, as I talked about there at the end, to remove that from your life so you can have this deeper intimacy with the Lord? And thirdly and finally, what gifts has God given you that sin is perverting? And so think through, what are some things that sin is perverting in your life? And all three of these questions are asking the similar thing, so it might be a similar answer. But I want you to think through those answers today. So thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow you'll get hear from Ron as we look at the next chapter, chapter 6. So thanks.